Very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Alden. Good morning to your viewers.
Thank you so much for making time for. I want to start off here. We just had a conversation now with Voter Wessels from the Freedom Front Plus, and I asked him about a position that was put forward by your president, Singh, that as far as he is concerned, the agreement amongst the multi-party charter members or political parties is that the political party at a provincial level that gets most of the votes would be the political party that puts forward the nomination of a premier candidate.
Correct.
He says that's not true. Voter Wessel says that's not true.
I don't know what President Tlhabisa said, but I would think that that might have been an arrangement because Tlhabisa sits at that level. So I suppose the leaders there would have agreed that the party with the largest number of votes would put forth the premier candidate.
Tlhabisa says that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
He says that.
It makes sense that
but Voter Wessel says that's not true.
Yeah, well, I don't know how much voter is involved in those negotiations because I myself am not involved at that level, at the multi-party charter level, because it's the leaders that talk there. So voter might be incorrect. He could have misunderstood what they said, but it's something that we can check and come back to.
Or the IFP could be incorrect.
Oh, yeah, one way or the other.
Okay, what do we make of this now? Here's a multi-party charter. It's the first time that we have anything of this nature leading into the elections. And it seems as though that you're not on the same page.
I think what's important about the multi-party charter is as we move forward and as we get results coming through later on in the day, it's going to be incumbent upon the multi-party charter partners to meet first, because we are cooperating with each other for some time now. We are cooperating with the DA at local government level in KwaZulu-Natal. So I think that's the first port of call. Before we talk to anybody else, it's a multi-party charters will come together and agree on the way forward as the multi-party charter, as individual parties, or whatever we agree on is something that we'll know a little later on in the day.
Yeah, what do you make of this particular element and where we're standing now?
Yeah, so obviously the multi-party charter formulated last year, supposed to be meeting every 2 weeks to essentially bypass one of the biggest impediments for coalitions, this 14-day window. After the elections are resolved, you've got 14 days to create a government, which across the world everyone says is insane. It's not enough time. So the question really becomes, when you're having these negotiations, if there is lack of information flowing down, it is fine if it's just talks about talks. But when it comes to governing, about this idea of our agreements at a provincial level, how does it flow down to our agreements at a city level? When you add possibly national government as well, it doesn't instill that level of confidence that opposition parties have figured out how to do coalitions. And obviously it's still very, very early for coalitions to learn this. But it is quite worrying when we're hearing that, there is a lack of alignment. Let's use that kind of language, a lack of alignment, because when it comes to policy issues, I mean, this is just a position, it's neither here nor there. When it comes to policies, you would hope that the entire coalition's on the same page, at least from my perspective. Yeah,
and also considering Voter Wessel saying that as far as they're concerned, the ANC will be pushed below that 50% threshold, specifically in Gauteng as well. And there is this lack of an alignment that Rikhotsofata speaks of.
Well, I think he's right in that the ANC will be pushed below 50% in Gauteng as they would at national. I mean, it's a given now. But like I say, the sine qua non will be that the multi-party charter meets and then looks at how they're going to move.
Yeah.
On which, as a bloc, or possibly as individual parties, but that's something that they will.
What does that mean?
There was an agreement with the multi-party charter at some stage that if the multi-party charter, as a grouping, doesn't achieve 50% plus one at any level of government, then individual parties will likely do what they, what they feel is best for their constituency and the country at that moment in time. Because as you would know, there are some in the multi-party charter who have said no to certain relationships with some of the parties. I mean, they've just said a categoric no, while others have left the door a bit open. So, but I think, I mean, as you know, Prof, coalitions is a dynamic process. and the dynamism will emerge at about 2 or 3 o'clock, I think, today.
Well, your party leader said that there is no way at all that the IFP would go into negotiations with the ANC or the MK party. Is that still a position that the party holds, considering that the numbers are now trickling in and reality is starting to hit home?
Yeah, well, you know, they say 24 hours is a long time in politics. I think now you will bring that down to 6 hours. 6 hours is a long time. And then I think each one will have to assess. I mean, from my own personal point of view, being in politics for a long time, any coalition that can take the country forward in terms of service delivery and satisfy the citizens of the country, irrespective of which political party they come from, ensure that there's economic growth, get rid of this unemployment stigma that's haunting us, ensure that health services are delivered to our people, you know, all our people across the country on an equal basis over there. I think that's the kind of agreement and arrangements they must come to.
So that means that the position could change?
The position could change.
The position could change. I now quickly want to zoom into KwaZulu-Natal, another IFP stronghold. The MK party has come through, I think 36.07% of the votes. Voting districts have been completed so far, according to the dashboard. The MK party currently standing at 45.34% of the vote, the ANC at 19.56% of the vote, and the IFP at 15.69% of the vote, and the Democratic Alliance at 12.9% of the vote. Did you expect this?
We did not expect the MK to rise to the level that they have risen with the 36% of the votes. But it's still early days. It depends where the votes are coming in from, whether they're urban areas, whether they are rural areas, and whose strongholds they are. When I last looked at the system early on, I found that a number of the northern areas, the votes had not come in.
Yeah.
And that's where we would expect, you know, to sort of boost our numbers. But notwithstanding that, I mean, MK would also get numbers there, taking them away from the ANC. So, excuse me, it's rather unexpected, but they've been doing their work quietly, I think, the MK, in KwaZulu-Natal in particular, and in some of the other provinces.
Yeah. How did they do it? How did they do it? Because here's the thing about it, is that the IFP stronghold is KwaZulu-Natal. And what the IFP has shown with the local government elections and the by-elections that followed is that it is a political party that is still regaining some of the lost ground. And I wonder what went wrong.
Well, you know, let's wait for the results. You know, in theatrical terms, they say it's you know, it's never over until the fat lady sings. So let's wait until she starts singing or bringing a tune on board. Yeah. But I think with the MK, a lot of disillusionment with the ANC. So their target was the ANC, but unfortunately we also being part of that target, but not to the extent that it is to the ANC. But let's wait and see. And I think the ANC have helped MK as well to do what they are doing. You know, going to court, contesting their logo, going to court to try and disbar them from contesting, going to court, taking Zuma to court on a number of occasions. I think all that has given them free airtime, and you've given them a lot of airtime as well, and everybody else. It
is one of the major stories of these elections. Correct. We've never had a former president before come back and then start a new political party to contest the elections. But quickly though, what does this tell us about the KZN voter? We were discussing a bit earlier on 1994, and the election after that, the IFP was in government. And then the ANC came through, of course, and this was when the deputy president of the ANC was still Jacob Zuma, who then later on became the president of the ANC. And now also it seems as though that the KZN voter is willing to change their vote.
So we've been looking at KZN and the voting behavior in particular. So this idea of, and it really gives us like a template for what future politics looks like. Do you build your party around kind of ground level work, build structures, build an identity, or do you build your party around particular personalities, particular identities of individuals? And it's looking as if, and it's still early, that for KZN in particular, it seems that it is following personalities.
Correct.
that as a new personality emerges, the votes move that way. I mean, this shift for the ANC in particular, it is almost as if MK has taken every single vote of the ANC bar 1 out of 5. That's really what the shift has been, to essentially say we're following this new personality.
Yeah.
But the question then becomes A, who could be a new personality in my mind? And then B, is that dangerous politics? Right, that a whole province can be swayed by an individual, and what does that mean for our democracy, and can it be replicated across the country?
Would you say that the campaign of having Mangosuthu Buthelezi as the face of your campaign has failed?
No.
It hasn't?
It hasn't failed. I mean, we haven't failed yet. Like I say, it's still early. I think it's helped us a great deal. Seeing that he passed on recently, and it's his legacy that we are promoting. I mean, if it was 5 years down the line, we probably wouldn't have taken the same decision.
Yeah.
But because he passed on recently, and he was quite involved in this campaign of ours, you know, albeit in quite a level, we decided as, you know, a collective that we should use him and his legacy. And I think it's worked. We definitely think it's worked, because in many areas we find that our vote count has increased. And if you look at some of the results that some of the other channels are showing us, not TV channels, but print media, you would see that in many instances they'll show MK with a plus, but IFP also with a plus. So it has, I think it's not a minus for the IFP so far. We are still ahead of where we were before.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. Narend Singh is the Chief Whip of the IFP. How will they fare in KwaZulu-Natal, considering that it is their stronghold?